the first $8 billion of inflation proofing. We're inflation proofed out the next several years. It's hard for me to argue to a constituent that it's a positive to further inflation proof to a year, maybe 10 budgets from now, 10 years ahead, that that's more important than following the law and paying their dividend now.
Thank you. Representative Rasmussen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd just like to highlight that we do have an amendment process that we can utilize here on the floor if we're not happy with the bill in its committee substitute form. If we could adopt the substitute so that we can move forward, I think people want us to get our work done. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Is there any further debate? Representative Carpenter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I will support the objection. I was on Finance Committee and had the opportunity to debate this committee substitute in House Finance. I think that my recommendation of amend, if I'd given the option, I would rather amend. There are fewer amendments that I would have to offer, would agree to on the governor's budget than this committee substitute. So I would say that we would spend less time amending if we took up the governor's amendment, the governor's version of this budget rather than the committee substitute. Thank you.
Thank you. Further debate. Representative Tuck.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move and ask unanimous consent that Representatives Prox and Nelson be excused from the call of the House today.
Hearing no objection, the members are excused. Is there further debate? Hearing none, are you ready for the question? The question is, shall the committee substitute for House Bill 281 pass the House? Members may proceed to vote. Will the clerk please lock the roll? Will the clerk please announce the vote?
22 yeas, 14 nays.
With 22 yeas and 14 nays, the committee substitute has been adopted. And at this time, I would like to announce a 2 p.m. today deadline for amendments to the operating budget. So that will be 2 o'clock today. There has been 9 days available to write amendments to this budget. So we've had ample time, more time than most budgets, and so all amendments must be to the clerk's office no later than 2 p.m. today if you want them to be accepted. And I will now hold this bill till the next day's calendar, and I will be holding it in second for the purposes of allowing amendments. Madam Clerk, please read the next item on today's calendar. Brief it easy. Madam Clerk, please read the next item on today's calendar.
House Bill Number 282 by the House Rules Committee by request of the Governor, entitled An Act Making Appropriations for the Operating and Capital Expenses of the State's Integrated Comprehensive Mental Health Program, making capital appropriations and supplemental appropriations, and providing for an effective date. The Finance Committee considered the bill, recommends it be replaced with committee substitute for House Bill 282 Finance with a new title. Signing the report do pass Representatives Edgman and co-chairs Foster and Merrick. No recommendation, Ortiz, Laban, Carpenter, Johnson, Wool, Josephson, and Rasmussen. I have one committee substitute.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move and ask unanimous consent that the House Finance Committee substitute for House Bill 282 with a new title be adopted in lieu of the original bill.
There's been an objection. Would you like to speak to your objection?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, this is the mental health budget that we are bringing up now, and what I would like to know is what are the differences in this budget?
Brief it is.
Hopefully you can now hear me. Sorry about that, everybody. It seems that a little bit of technical difficulties there. We got Luis Stutz there in the background, and haha, there we go. So yeah, we got Luis Stutz there in the background, and she is definitely as corrupt as they come. The only reason why these budget talks weren't started last week is because they did not have their entire illegal binding caucus inside of the room to be able to shoot down any of the amendments that are going to be presented by the Republican minority caucus there. They wanted to make sure that the illegal binding caucus, the 21 that have got into the House majority there this year, they wanted to make sure that their bought and paid for votes that to be yes no matter what were in the room, because they knew if they weren't in the room, the amendments the Republicans want to bring forward would pass. And so they want to stop that completely. They're not there to do the people's business. They're to do what the special interest business is for them. What Louise Stutes did was completely, absolutely, in my book, 100% irrepresentable. Tough word to say there. And she definitely needs to wake up and smell the coffee. We are on to the political games that they got going on down there in Juneau at this time. They definitely don't want us to know everything that is happening there in Juneau. They want us all to think that this is all just fun and games, and that everything that they're doing is just, oh, it's all above board. But the truth is, the only reason why they did not have this last week is because Louise Stutes' illegal binding caucus that is formed of the 21 members there weren't in the room to stop any agenda that would have been working for the people. They want to make sure that they get their special interest budgets passed. This is a $7 billion budget. It's from what I've been told, between the mental health and the regular budget for like K through 12 and stuff like that. And that is a $2.2 billion jump over last year's. They claim they don't have the money to give us a full statutory PFD following the law, but miraculously they have $2.2 billion to go spend on other things. And if you read the comments of what I wrote for this particular video here today, it's clear that the $1,300 stimulus check to help us during these times of need of high inflation and high gas is this little token of money that we want to give you to buy our votes. And the sliver of our statutory PFD, which is supposed to be over $4,000 this year, the $1,200 they want to give us for that, $2,500 total between the two, is where all of this extra money is coming from, which is a big lie. That $2.2 billion increase is what they added on top of everything that they wanted to spend. If they followed the law, they would have $3.5 billion surplus sitting there right now. They wouldn't be trying to change the laws for base student allocation, or as I call it, SBA, student base allocation. They would try to be leaving that exactly where it belongs as it currently stands as law, and doing a 10% reduction to the early education and K through 12 system, which would be about a $130 million budget cut from their current budget that they have down there right now. $130 million instead of $1.33 billion that they spent last year. It would be down to, instead, $130 million less, which would be about, what, $1.17, $1.2 billion instead of what they're currently spending right now. Nope, instead they got a budget right now that has a $50 million increase to their current budget as it sits. They're calling this their bonus that they're going to add in for K through 12 this year to help them through all of these pandemic hard times. The school buses that weren't running, the schools that were closed down, we are going to do everything virtually learning that was trying to take their brick and mortar school system and put it into play as a way of learning, which drastically, spectacularly failed to accomplish anything that it was supposed to. In fact, it made our scores for our K through 12 go even further down to where they reported at the beginning of these sessions this year in January when this all started, and they were given their updates for what the new sessions should look like, and here's where all the budgets are and where we academically stand. We were ranked number 52 out of 52 states. That includes Puerto Rico and Guam. We were the worst in the nation, and we are worse than many third world countries when it comes to providing an education, and that is Alaska, and they want to give them more money. They're trying to pass bills like HB 259, which reallocates 50% of the permanent fund dividend at a 5% draw straight over to the K through 12 education. That would be a $600 million budget increase in a blink of an eye if that happens. Now back to student-based allocation. They've got another one that they're trying to rewrite the law that governs what they get for their base student allocation, student-based allocation, for what they get paid per student. And because they should be following the law right now, which would mean $130 million budget cut, they're trying to rewrite the law so that there'll actually be a budget increase. So that $60 million, $50 million bonus that they want to give them this year, that $50 million is actually going to become, if they pass this, that will disappear if they pass this law. And if they pass this law, it actually means they're going to be closer to $60 million plus increase. So the bonus would disappear if this new law gets passed for student-based allocation. It's their way of trying to subvert the system, and they're still not following the law. I mean, they should be seeing a 10% budget cut. That's how many students we've lost over the last couple of years out of the school districts. 10% less. I mean, many of them did like my child did. They went to a homeschool program, and a very accredited homeschool program, and entered it in at the beginning of the 11th grade, and within 2 months it graduated their senior year, which is remarkable that in 2 months time going through a homeschool program that is teaching basically the same thing you would get in the brick and mortar school, minus the gym class, so to speak. Fortunately, the 2 years being in school already accomplished those credits that were required for gym class. So through the homeschool program, within 2 months, completely graduated 2 years worth of schooling. And it's just amazing how they try to shy away of why a big percentage of the drop in student-based allocation, or the students that are sitting in the seats, had to do with a lot of students have graduated early. They got woke up to the woke mob, and parents were smart enough to enroll them in alternative schooling like homeschooling, and they found out that the kids that had been in school all of this time were being held back, that they weren't being allowed to move at the pace that they were able to move. I mean, there's a lot of intelligent children in Alaska right now that find their livelihoods, their futures, where they're going to go next, completely stifled and crushed on a daily basis, all for diversity and equity. We got to have equal outcomes. So if your student's way up here and this student's way down there, we got to bring this person down to this person's level, so that way there are equity, and the diversity of what they're being taught is equal for both of them. Instead of trying to do more to elevate those that are succeeding, pushing them through, making them advance faster, giving them more and challenging classes to be taken. If they finish a course within record time, get them into another course. Just keep right on pushing them through, but our school districts don't do that. You got a bright student that's well ahead of the rest of the class. They force that student to sit there and twiddle their thumbs waiting on the rest of the class to catch up with them. My kid went through the same thing the first 2 years of high school, completely done with the courses, sat around in the classes twiddling her thumbs until the rest of the class caught up before they would release the next course for her to be able to move on to the next class. And it just completely slowed down the progress. As soon as she got into the homeschool program and they were no longer limiting how many classes she could take or how quickly she could move through from one class to the next, lo and behold, within 2 months she completed 2 years worth of schooling. Ha! That is just absolutely amazing. And oh, by the way, honor roll student all the way through, straight A kid. So it's not like they were doing the bare minimum on these things. I personally would not allow that. My child's ethics that she has for herself wouldn't allow that. She's very proud of the hard work that she put in and the education that she received, which all students should be. But with the indoctrination that we're getting in with our school systems, the diversity and equity, the CRT training training that they are getting now and being taught in our schools. It is scary. I mean, to see the reports that students are told not to disclose to their parents about their new names or how they identify in school, or to hear that school teachers are helping them get set up so that they can have their children taken away from them because they don't believe the way they think they should believe. These are children. I mean, most of them don't even know which shoe or how to even tie their shoes when they get into kindergarten, and now they want them to change to decide what gender they're supposed to be when they don't even know what gender means. It's just really, really scary. We've got away from children being children. We've got away from teaching out there. And I'm currently just waiting for them to get for House Bill 282, which is the mental health budget, which is the next bill that they're supposed to be discussing. They're just gavel to gavel is just currently in the background, just panning around the room all over the place. I believe they're all rapidly trying to get new amendments added in and stuff that they want to talk about on this particular bill. But I'm not expecting too much to be happening today. Again, this is going to be picked back up tomorrow with all the amendments. They have until 2 o'clock today to get those amendments in on HB 281, which is the state and capital budget bill, or the state budget bill, not the capital budget. I have yet to see the actual capital budget, but this thing is $7 billion. That is $2.2 billion more than they had spent last year, and they're making claims they have no money, yet they had a $3.5 billion surplus above and beyond what the current budget is in tax revenue this year. A $3.5 billion surplus above and beyond what the current budget was of $4.8 billion, $3.5 billion more. That would be like me saying, hey, you've got $350 more inside of your bank account above your $1,000 budget. Congratulations. Way to go, guys. Here you that $350, what are you going to do with it? Well, most people would keep it in their savings so that it grows, so in a rainy day that they really do need it, they have that extra $350 that they didn't have before. But not our legislators. They're trying to take that $3.5 billion and spend it as fast as they can, so that way they can get back into the great debate of why they can't pay us a statutory PFD. You know, if they spend all the money, they don't have to do it. Oh, they're back. All right, they should be starting talking here any second.
Representative Foster.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. With regard to the mental health budget, and that's HB 282, just a couple differences. We've got a fund source swap for inpatient mental health for disability and law center settlements. That was 1.9 million plus 678,000. And what they did, it's just a UGF, but they just switched it so for tracking purposes from non-mental health to mental health. And then two other changes. The governor had requested a decrement of $700,000 for behavioral health treatment grants, and that was denied. And then the third item here is the subcommittee added $346,000 in mental health GF for grants for behavioral health prevention and early intervention grants. So those three items are the primary substantive changes, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Further debate? Representative Tilton, do you maintain your objection?
Yes, I do.
You ready for the question? Brief at ease.
Twiddle your thumbs, twiddle dee, twiddle dum. What do we do next? These guys just love wasting time down there in Juneau. It just never seems that they ever seem to get anything right. These guys just love wasting time down there in Juneau. It just never. And here we are once again waiting. They're supposed to be doing an amendment. They listened to the amendment. They listened to arguments from the amendment, and there was an objection. Now we're going to have to sit and wait while we twiddle thumbs, while the caucuses sit there and talk to themselves in the background, trying to figure out how they're going to vote on this particular amendment that isn't going to make it through because the 21 majority in there, the binding caucus, isn't going to allow those kind of things to happen. This is the reason why they delayed anything going on with the House bill for 281, which is the actual state budget. They don't want the state budget being discussed right now because there's members missing. I think there's like 4 or 5 of them that are still missing there that are a part of their illegal binding caucus. And without those votes, any amendments that get read across or heard are going to probably get passed, which are majority of those amendments are all coming from the Republican minority because they had no voice in the budget process. Anytime they brought anything up during the budget process, it was immediately shot down. And so now that'll be their only opportunity is doing amendments while the bill is before it gets voted on by the whole body. And Louise Stutz, that's the reason why she shut everything down last week, is she didn't want them to be able to get any of their amendments passed because her binding caucus, the 21 that had sold their voices and votes to be in that binding caucus, sold out our voices, our votes to be in that illegal binding caucus. And because they sold out our voices and votes, no matter what these Republicans minorities introduced, they're going to get overran and they're going to get shot down every single time because the illegal binding caucus is going to vote in lockstep and shoot them down every single time because that is what they have been bought and paid for to do. To be in this binding caucus, this majority, you have to vote a certain way. You have to vote the way those that are in charge, Louise Stutz, Bryce Edgmans, Ivy Smanonsold, Kelly Merrick, you have to vote the way they tell you to vote. And if you don't vote the way they tell you to vote, then you are ostracized and you're in trouble and you can't be a part of this majority that they have down there right now. And because of that, because those members, those 4 or 5 members that are currently missing from legislation right now, that's why they delayed it even further today. They're going to allow amendments to be still entered in until 2 p.m. today, and they're not going to bring up any of this till tomorrow, and they're crossing their fingers they're all going to be back and they're going to be there to be able to squash all the amendments the Republicans are going to put forward, and so that they can take full control of what is happening there in Juneau. Nothing unusual. This is same political hack tricks that they do every single time. And Senate majority over there is no difference of what's going on there. On a side note, if you have not gone out and voted in the Alaska Anchorage elections going on right now, major shift. You've got today and tomorrow, your last 2 days to get out there and vote. You can completely change the way the assembly is made up right now. I mean, the Democrats out there, the far left, the extremists, the ones that want the spend more, spend it now agenda have backed up the campaigns out there, and it is just absolutely unbelievable. I'm seeing paid for ads out there from Alaska AFL, CIO, Ship Creek Group, SERI, and all these other different organizations that are working hand in hand to get reelected. The same people excuse me, that brought you to lockdowns, caused record number of small businesses to close down permanently forever, and they have no care whatsoever, and the only people that profited off of what their actions has been the same people that are paying for these ads that are out there right now. I'm looking at the ads, and these are just literally a smear job that's going on, and it's just unbelievable what is being said. I have been following it on the side, and I made a promise that today was going to be the day that I broke out of my shell from ignoring politics, in other words, not reporting on it, to where I'm going to start reporting on it on a daily basis. But if you haven't got out and voted, today and tomorrow is your last chance to vote in the Anchorage election. You've got assembly members, you've got school board members, you could change it all.
We are
They're
on
back.
further discussion on adopting the CS for House Bill 282. Representative Eastman?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, there was very little discussed as far as the changes between CS and the original bill. You know, I'm looking at the CS here. I'm seeing that at least in Section 2 of the bill, we're appropriating a little bit more than $223 million. And that seems like an awful lot of money and very little discussion about it. I just hope that the bill gets the due diligence that that sum of money is entitled.
Further discussion? Are you ready for the question? The question is, shall the CS for House Bill 282 be adopted? Members may proceed to vote. Will the clerk please lock the roll? Does any member wish to change his or her vote? Will the clerk please announce the vote?
23 yeas, 12 nays.
With 23 yeas and 12 nays, the CS has been adopted, and I will be rolling House Bill 282 to the next day's calendar, holding it in second for the purposes of amendments. Madam Clerk, please read the next item on today's calendar. Oh, Representative Pawcatuck.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On 282, are you proposing an amendment deadline?
Thank you, Representative Pawcatuck. The deadline for 282 will be the same as 281, 2 p.m. today. Any amendments must be in the clerk's office by 2 p.m. And thank you for that reminder, Representative Pawcatuck. Madam Clerk, please read the next item on today's calendar.
House Bill number 297 by Representatives Hopkins and Nelson, entitled An Act Relating to the Duties of the Department of Health and Social Services Relating to Child Protection and Relating to Children of Active Duty Military Members. The Special Committee on Military and Veterans Affairs considered the bill, recommends it be replaced with committee substitute for House Bill 297, Military and Veterans Affairs, with the same title. Attached one new zero fiscal note. Signing the report do pass Representatives Clayman, Tarr, Story, Nelson, and co-chairs, Shaw and Chair.
All right, give me one more second here, folks. I'm just trying to get this all cleared up and stopped.
Consider the bill.
That was pretty much all I was going to live stream for you all here today. Thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget to like and share. So tomorrow is going to begin the great debate on the floor. Thought they might be doing it today, and no, there's still too many members that are missing there, and they don't have the votes that they need to stop the amendments from getting passed through today. So what they have done is they read them both onto the floor, both House Bill 281, which is the state budget, and House Bill 282, which is the mental health budget. And they put both of them onto the floor today to acknowledge that they are now going to be heard tomorrow, and that any amendments in both of those bills have to be in by 2 o'clock today. So if you got anything you want your legislators to add into those bills, you need to be calling on, being on the phone. You need to be sending them emails. You need to be letting them know that you got things that you would like to see done on those bills, or see things amended that would have things removed if you don't want to see them in those bills. And I'll just emphasize again that the $7 billion is the total between the two of them. And it just makes me shake my head. And we haven't even gotten into the capital budget yet. This is just a state and mental health budget. And it's $2.2 billion more than what they had proposed last year. And they're supposed to be fiscally responsible, so they claim. Yet here they are, $2.2 billion more than what it was the year before. It can't pay a statutory PFD. They're passing a stimulus bill, which has nothing to do with stimulus. It has everything to do with trying to buy your vote, and so that they don't have to follow the state statutory formula for our permanent fund dividend. They have $3.5 billion in tax revenue surplus above and beyond what a $4.8 billion budget would be that they could have put away into the CBR, followed the state statutory PFD law, and transferred the money from the ERA account to pay us our statutory PFD this year. And they would be $3.5 billion ahead and in the budget that they could put away into the CBR for next year or the year after that, and start growing that money back up again. Instead, they're doing everything they can to spend it because they want to keep the conversation towards stealing the entire PFD and the fund for funding government. And if they have surpluses like this still sitting around, they can't justify stealing our money. That's why they've raised the budget $2.2 billion, and that's why they're doing everything they can to try to spend every penny of that surplus that they got this year. It's disgusting. Like, share this video. I will definitely be back again tomorrow. I'll be a little bit better set up than I am today. I have been doing a lot of work, but I made a promise to a lot of people that I would get back active into politics, and today is the day. And once again, if you are living in the Anchorage area or last Anchorage municipality, get out there and vote. There are a lot of conservatives that are trying to get onto the assembly and the school boards, and it's time to change the demographics of what's going on there in Anchorage. Your city is being run into the ground. Your taxes are going through the roof. If you own property, you watched your property taxes go up by astronomical amounts this past year, and they're trying to justify it all as you voted for it. Not to mention you got the school bond that's sitting there. They're advertising it as, well, we made a promise we wouldn't give you one for 2 years, and we didn't do that. Well, now year number 2, here we are again. We want another $100 million to be able to fund into our schools. And oh, by the way, there is a side consequence to that we're not going to continue to let you know. We're not going to advertise that portion of it, but your property taxes will be going up to help pay for this new $100 million bond. Not to mention all the infrastructure bonds that they got sitting out there right now. If it was me, I lived in Anchorage, I'd be voting no across the board. I mean, the watch how much their budget has grown, and they have no way to pay for it. And the only way they're going to get to pay for it is by jacking up your property taxes. And every time they jack up your property taxes, that means one less person out there that can afford to live someplace, especially if you own like an apartment building, and let's say you had 50 units inside your apartment building, and they raise your property taxes up $100,000. Well, if they do that, and I'm exaggerating on the amount that it would raise, but just to give you an idea, say $100,000 and you were paying $50,000, well, who do you think is going to pay that extra $50,000 increase on the property taxes? You, the renter. Those 50 units are going to find their rent going up to take out the factor of what they're going to owe in new taxes for property, and they're going to make you pay for it. Well, then that means those living in poverty, those living in middle class, they are finding themselves even worse off than they were before, on top of hyperinflation. I mean, I did my numbers for last year, what it cost me to live last year compared to the year before. And mind you, and I did take into account that I was actually working more the year before than I did this past year. It cost me $6,000 more to live last year than it did the year before. And it just makes me shake my head between gas prices, electric prices, heating my home prices, the cost of food, the cost of just normal material items that you need, toilet paper. I mean, the cost of everything has gone up and skyrocketing through the roof. 10 cents per item doesn't sound like much, but when you buy 10 of them, that's another $1. And when you're going to the grocery store and you normally buy $100 worth of stuff, and now it's 10% more than what it was the year before, that's now $110 I just spent on the same stuff I bought last year for a lot less. You do keep on doing this over and over and over again, you can see how quickly it adds up to where I get my $6,000 from. And a lot of it is fuel costs and electric costs and heating costs are the biggest contributors to my large increase that I've seen over this past year. And I would say, it's about a 50-50 between the what it's cost me to just my normal heating, and the other 50% has been coming from consumer goods. What I buy at the store. If I buy a case of soda, it's now costing me $3 more than it did the year before. These are the kind of things that you don't think very much about, but if you drink a 12-pack a week, so to speak, and you're doing that 4 times a month, that's an extra $12 there every single month, and then by the end of the year you're sitting at $144, something like that, somewhere around that area, and extra money that you spent just on buying the soda that you had been buying the year before. It all adds up, and it adds up quickly, and it completely drains the bank accounts. I went from finally growing my bank account, first time in years, and now I had all of my savings that I thought I'd finally got to put something away towards retirement. I ended up having to start spending it again, and I'm watching it whittle down to where now I'm back to one account again, trying to pay my bills because it's not matching what's coming in. It's getting so bad out there. I did the first thing, something that I haven't done in 20 years. I raised the rates of what I charge people to do the work that I do, and I was really unfortunate to have to charge more for my travel time and charge more for my hourly labor for what I do, just so I can continue to be able to pay my bills. In 20 years, I've never had to do that. So that just gives you an idea how bad things are really getting, and I'm not the only company that's doing this. I mean, all of my distributors out there are sending me monthly notices reminding me, don't forget, our goods and services are going up 6 to 10% over what, and get ready for the new price sheets to come out. That $1,000 item that you just got done buying is going up 6%. So that $1,000 item is now going to cost you another 6% more, which is, it doesn't sound like much, but when you add that up over and over and over again, that just completely drains your accounts, and you got to pass that cost back on to your consumer, the customer, and they're paying more, so they've got to pass that on to their customers, so they start charging you more. And so when you Biden and them give out these theories that they say, or they throw out the buzzword trickle economics. There is no such thing as trickle economics, where the money rolls down to the next person and it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger as it goes. What it means is that the bottom line is as things go up on the upper end, the person that's producing it, they pass that savings of the increase onto the next distributor. That distributor passed the upgraded costs on that item onto the next distributor, and by the time they're through, that item that cost $1 to manufacture a year ago now costs $20 to manufacture, because it's had to go through so many different things of increases. Like, the distributor had to pay more because the trucking company that's shipping it to them is costing more. The people that are doing the mining for the products to get that materials into production is costing more. So trickle-down economics only works way. It's actually trickle-up economics. It keeps upping the price higher and higher, and we're paying the cost. All right, I'm done. Please like and share. I will be back again live tomorrow, no ifs, ands, or buts, covering the great budget debate in the House of Representatives. It is going to be a heated, contested. Those amendments are going to be flying off the table. I'm expecting to hear a lot of things that are going to say we need to cut this out of the budget, that out of the budget. And I'm expecting the illegal binding caucus majority controlled by Louise Stutes, Bryce Edgman, Ivy Spinonsalt, and Kelly Merrick among names there inside of the Josh Crush and so on and so forth. All of these people, there's going to be a good reason why they are going to be arguing for that money to not be cut back out of the budget, and they're going to be putting in their own amendments to increase the budgets, and anything that says we're going to give a fair share or something that's going to help us Alaskans in our time of need when we're being crushed out here. And watching anybody living in poverty has been thrown further into poverty to where there's absolutely no economical chance of getting back out of it again, unless you actually go out there and get a job, and that pays well, or gets a job that's more than part-time. And that is when I talk about people in poverty and I say you need to get a job, I don't mean that you don't have a job. It's get a job that's full-time hours. And my own kiddo is going through this right now and finding out how hard it is to try to find a job that will actually pay 8 hours a day's worth of work, or give 8 hours a day worth of work. And it's time for that to change. I mean, how many different jobs does a person have to have before they are actually able to get 8 hours a day. I mean, they're to work 2, 3 jobs because each one wants to give you either 4 hours or less, or 4 hours is the max, sometimes 5. That just doesn't work. But we're only going to work you 4 or 3 days out of the week with those part-time hours on top of it all. They don't want you to get more than 20 hours a week. The minute that you start to get into full-time hours, then they don't want that, because a lot of these places are all corporations and they got more than 100 employees, and every time you hit full-time hours, that's more money they got to put out of their pocket to cover benefits that our government is forcing them to pay to give to you. Oh man, never-ending cycle out there. So it's not that you need more money, it need more hours. I see that all over the industry out there, and it's just absolutely scary watching what's going on, and nobody seems to care that are cutting the purse strings down there in Juneau. They think all that money just grows on trees. We give it to the special interest. The special interest puts it into their pocket, and the trickle-down effect is it goes from our pockets, from taxes, goes to our government to pay for the services that they give back to us, that goes to the corporations out there, whether it be education, healthcare, or any of the nonprofits or unions. They give it and they put it into the pockets of their shareholders and into the administration on the upper level. And by the time it gets done doing its full circle and actually reaches people like me and you, by the time it reaches our level of spending, we get to see maybe if we're lucky, 10% of that money actually being put back into the economy, beyond covering all of those special interests, salaries, bonuses, and everything else. We see it in our education through K through 12. All of it goes to administration staff up above, and the unions running them, and what the teachers are getting are pennies, because they claim they don't have no money to be able to give them, because we've got all this other stuff that costs so much, like your healthcare program and your retirement and all this other stuff that we got to give you, and there's just no money. And then, but ignore the 10 administrators doing the same job for that one teacher out there that's trying to do their job, and you've got 10 administrators to every one teacher, and so you look at that, it's lopsided all the way around, but that's the way it works. I mean, that's what happens when you have 54 school districts and 503 schools in Alaska, 54 different administrations running each district. Man, the cost, the waste for the worst education in the United States, and worst education in the many third world countries. And this is including Puerto Rico and Guam. Like, share this video. Appreciate you guys all being here today, and I will be back again tomorrow with the great budget debate.